Today we are taking a look at a guitar solo by Slash that really did put me through it, gave me a headache trying to work it out, and that is the guitar solo from Too Far Gone. So one of my private students said, can we learn Too Far Gone by Slash, all the rhythm parts and the solo? And I was like, yeah, of course we can, it's an awesome tune. So I started figuring it out. And when it got to the solo, there was a couple of parts, a couple of runs where I was like, what is he doing? I cannot figure that out. I mean, even slowing it down to 50%, I was like, how is he doing that? How is he cramming that all in? And it really did give me a headache. But after about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, I finally settled on what I'm going to show you today. Now, the lesson itself is very thorough as always, but the nature of learning guitar solos and teaching them on YouTube, it can get a bit confusing. So if you do want the tab, click the link up there, join me on Patreon. But I am going to teach you the whole solo and explain my reasonings for certain decisions, etc. Now, let's talk a little bit about tuning. As most of you should already know, with this being Slash, he is in E flat standard. That's the tuning that all the Guns N' Roses stuff was in, and then in turn, all of his solo stuff as well. E flat standard is simply E, A, D, G, B, E, but everything tuned down a semitone. So the same intervals, nothing special. You can literally just put your tuner on, knock everything down a semitone. That was like one of those cheesy 90s videotapes. Do you remember? Let's learn how to play like Slash. Now, let's learn how to play like Slash. So we're going to be using several positions of F sharp, natural minor, F sharp, Aeolian. So I'm just going to play a couple of those shapes now, and you can get familiar with them, learn them, and then various parts of the solo, all the parts of the solo, will make more sense to you if you know the key and the scales. Those are the three shapes that we're going to be using the most. There's a couple of moments where it goes in between. And also we're going to be using the first two positions, the octave above as well, so it's worth practicing way up high on the tiny frets. Probably find that you use different fingers to the shapes down here. You know my style by now. I'm going to break it down into manageable chunks for you, bit by bit. So here's the first one. You're going to start by bending the 4th fret of the G up a whole step. You can do that 3 times in a row, but the 3rd time, you're going to let it down and then pull off to the 2nd fret with the index finger, okay? Then put your 3rd finger flat across the 4th fret of the D and the G, and you're going to go back and forth between those notes. I like to chuck in a little bit of palm mute, and it keeps it just a fraction more tidy. Now this is where being in E flat really helps you out, because we're going to bend the 2nd fret of the G up a whole step and then back down. I use my 2nd finger here because I'm weak, and I back it up with my index finger. Slash probably just uses his ginormous index finger, but I need the extra support. So you're going to bend that up a tone and then back down. Then we've got this. Now we're going to hit the 4th fret of the D string twice, 2nd fret once, come down to the 4th fret of the A, and then walk back up the notes that we came down. So 2nd fret of the D, 4th fret of the D. Then index fingers going across the 2nd fret of the G and the B, and we're going to do that major third double stop with a slight pull, just to give it a little bit of attitude. You can go a little bit of vibrato on the F sharp, and then pull that just a fraction. And the end of that first section goes like this. This is where we come into the second position for the first time, also known as your A major scale, relative major. You're going to start by hitting the 4th fret of the G with the 3rd finger, and then come back to the 2nd fret with the index. Then put the 3rd finger back down on the 4 and slide up to the 6. And then stretch the index finger back to the 3rd fret of the B. Back to the 6 on the G with the 3rd finger. And then you're going to go back and forth between the 5th fret of the B with the 2nd finger and the 3rd finger on the 6th fret of the G. Nice little trade-off between index and 2nd finger there. Then we have a quick hammer-on pull-off from 3rd fret of the B to the 5th fret, index and 2nd fingers. And then you're going to go back and forth between the 6th fret of the G with the 3rd finger and the 3rd fret of the B with the index finger. And you can see there that happens twice. Here's the second part that we're going to learn. This part right here is what gave this video its title. Could I work this out? No, I could not. It gave me a proper headache. Now, it's descending down the A major scale, essentially. Second position of your F sharp natural minor scale. But it starts out with this kind of delivery. And you think it's going to carry on and make its way down to this G sharp here, but it doesn't, it changes. And I was playing it here. Trying loads of different things, but nothing sounded right. And this is what I settled on, and it's pretty close. And I can guarantee you, unless you're, I don't know, Steve Vai or Slash, when you try this, it should give you a bit of a headache as well. So here we go. We're going to start by doing this hammer on pull off from the 4th fret of the G to the 6th fret with the index and 3rd finger. And then you're going to walk down, pinky, 3rd finger on the 7th and the 6th fret of the D. Then come back up to your index finger on the 4th fret of the G. And then walk down 7, 6, 4 on the D string. That's the nice bit, that's the simple bit. Then we've got this. So you're going to put your 3rd finger on the 6th fret of the D string, play that, and then a quick hammer on pull off 4, 6, 4. And then hit the 4 again, hammer on pull off, and then come down to the 7th fret of the A. Together. Start your next little phrase from the pinky on the 7th fret, and you're going to pull off to 5, then pull off to 4. Then pick the 5 on the low E, the note A, and pull off to 4. Those last 3 together. And then that last little phrase, you're going to put your 3rd finger on the 6th fret of the D, hammer on pull off to the 7th fret very quickly with the pinky, and then pull that off back to the 4 in one motion before putting the 3rd finger back down where you started on the 6. You could play that as like a little slide pull-off as well. But I think the hammer-on pull-off just gives it a little bit more definition. Okay, next part. This is a really cool little phrase, and it helps kind of take us from position 1, 2, 3, 4, making our way up the fretboard without kind of doing too big of a jump. It's all connected. So you're going to slide into the 7th fret of the G with the 3rd finger, the note E, and then hop up your index finger to the 7th fret of the B, which is the note F sharp. And then we're going to bend the 9th fret of the B string up 3 times, just a semitone. On that 3rd one, you're going to let it down and pull off back to the 7th fret with the index finger. Then we put our 3rd finger flat across the 9th fret of the G and the B, and we go back and forth. Try and keep separation between the notes. Don't let them bleed together too much. Like that. Then we have a very quick hammer-on pull-off again. 7th fret to the 9th fret on the B. Come down to the 9th fret of the G. Back to the 7 on the B. And then slide that 3rd finger from the E on the 9th fret of the G to the F sharp, our root again. A little bit of vibrato if you want, then this. So that's 9th fret of the B string with the index finger, back to that 11th fret of the G, and then a semitone pull off from 10th fret of the B back to 9, and then back to that 11th fret of the G again, the F sharp. Here's the next phrase. So that's 3 whole tone bends from the 12th fret of the B, and on the 3rd one you're going to let it down, like we've done before, and then pull off back to the index finger on the 10. After that pull off back to the 10, you're going to put your 2nd finger on the 11th fret of the G, and then 3rd finger on the 12th fret of the B. 2 little notes to conclude that. Then you take your 2nd finger to the 10th fret of the B, back it up with the index. You're going to bend that up a whole step, give it some fairly wild vibrato, and then let it back down to the 10th fret again. Then we have this little repetitive pattern, which is really cool. So index finger on the 9, 2nd finger on the 10 on the B. It's the same first 2 notes, 9, 10. And then the high E string notes are just descending, 12, 10, 9. When you get to that 9th fret, you're going to go to the 12th fret of the B with the 3rd finger and go back and forth, finishing on the 9. Next little part of the solo. Also responsible for giving me just a little bit of a headache. So where we finished off on the 9th fret of the high E, we are going to hit that again, but I think it makes sense to break it where I did, even though it's the same note. Extra 9. Then we're going to hit the 12th fret of the high E with the pinky, and we're going to come back to the 10th fret of the B with the index, back to the high E, and then the 9th fret of the B with the index. So again, it's this back and forth kind of call and response thing, but the lower string's descending this time. He's clever, he's putting us through it. So this next lick was also responsible for giving me partial headache. Let me start by just playing it slow, and then I'll talk you through it. Okay, start with your 2nd finger on the 10th fret of the B, put the index behind it, planted already, play the 10, then hammer on pull off from the 9 back to the 10. come down to the 11th fret of the G with the third finger, and then go back up to the 9. You're going to do the same thing again, but you're going to pick the 9 and the 10 rather than doing a hammer-on pull-off. And then come back down to that 11. So the first time, you picked the 10, then you did a hammer-on pull-off 9, 10, 9. And then this time we're going to pick 9, 10, and just pull off back to the 9. After that 11th fret of the G, you're going to go back to the 9 on the B for a single note, and then pull off the 11 on the G back to the 9. Then we're going to slide the third finger from the 9th fret of the D to the 11, hit the minor third above, 9th fret of the G with the index, and then slide the opposite way from 11 back to 9 on the D. Then we're going to hit that 9 again, pull off to the 7, come down to the 9th fret of the A, and then slide that index finger from 7 on the D back to 9. It's really cool, worth learning. Makes more sense when you come from the previous bit. Okay, next part. Starts to get a little bit manic now, if it hasn't been manic enough already. And this is the first time that we come up to the first position of the F sharp natural minor scale, F sharp Aeolian, but in the second octave. So, opening with a 17th fret bend on the B string, you're going to pick it and push it up a whole tone twice. Now, on that second bend, you can let it sustain, drop it down, slide up 2 frets to the 19, and then push that up a whole tone as well. Then come back to the 14th fret of the B with the index finger, and then hit the 17 twice and give it some vibrato with the third. Now we have this little hammer-on pull-off lick. So that's going to be, again, index on the 14th fret of the B, third finger to the 17th fret, hammer-on pull-off, second finger down on the 16 on the G, and then do the hammer-on pull-off again at the start. Where you would expect to hit that second finger again, you're actually going to use third finger on the 16th fret of the G, hit it once, then bend it up and down, quick pull off back to the index on the 14, and then hit the 16 again with the third finger. After that 16, you're going to sneak in a very quick 14, 16, 16, 14 on the G string. I really like that lick. Again, that was difficult to work out. Feels really hurried, like maybe that one was improvised and he knew he needed to get to the big bend next. Some of them are kind of way faster and angular than others that are a little bit more melodic. They might have been like ideas he came in with plus improv, if that makes sense. Anyway, next part. We open with a very Page-esque, enormous bend, 17th fret of the high E. I ain't going to push it though because I haven't changed my strings in a while and I don't fancy popping one. But yeah, try and push it up 2 tones, basically until your finger feels like it wants to throw up, if that makes sense. Let it down, bend it back up, just a whole step this time. Let it down. Come back to the 16, then the 17. And now you're going to do something cool. You're going to bend the 16 up a semitone. Let it down. Back to the 14. So back to back, they go like this. Then come back to the 16 with the second finger, 17 on the B with the third, and then back to the index on the 14 before bending the 17th fret of the B up to match that. After that bend, we have this. It's a very kind of traditional blues lick, you could call it. Start with your index finger on the 14th fret of the high E, and then go to the 17th fret with the pinky on the B, 14 on the B, and then bend the 16th fret of the G up, down, and pull off. And then flat roll that third finger on the 16th fret of the D and the G back and forth. So that whole thing from the big massive bend now as we slide out, that gives us the opportunity to slide back in to our next lick. A very, very cool lick to finish with. Okay, I'm going to start by sliding into the 18th fret of the G with the second finger, and then put your index finger on the 17th fret of the B and the E, and you're going to pick E, then B. Little A major triad. So remember, we slid out of the last one and then into this one. Then you're going to grab the 19th fret of the high E and you're going to bend that up a whole tone 3 times. On that third one, let it down, as we've done a lot in this solo so far, and pull off back to the 17 with the index finger. Hit the 19 again, and then I want you to bend the 17th fret up with the second finger a whole tone to match that 19. And then you can let it down, pre-bend release. Then you're going to hit the 19th fret of the high E, 17th fret, and back to the 19th fret for a bend and release. It doesn't have to quite be a whole tone. It sounds cool if you just go a little bit flat with it. Then you hit the 17 and the 19 again. One more bend up. And then you're going to go 17 on the E, 19 on the B. After that 19 on the B, you're then going to hammer on from 17 to 19, just to conclude that last part. Now we have a series of hammer-ons that are descending down the F-sharp pentatonic minor scale effectively, and it's going to bring us to a close. So that's 14 to 17 on the B, 16 to 18 on the G. You could also play that 12, 14 on the B if you wanted. You decide. Then 14, 16 on the G. Then you're going to push the 14 on the D slightly, and then hit the 16 on the D. Back at that F sharp, which is our root note, okay? Now, because that last section is a lot of the same, repeated in slightly different variations, it gets confusing. So memorize it. Use the tab if you want that as well. You can check that out on Patreon, but memorize it, watch my example, and then practice it in small chunks. And once you've got it slow, put it all together. As I always say, the worst thing to do would be to go right through it start to finish without taking a breath, trying to memorize anything, and then think, oh my God, I forgot the start. Work through it methodically, get it right, and you'll nail it. That's me done. Are you done? Did you smash it? Of course you smashed it. I taught it to you. There was no other outcome, let's be honest. Speaking of smashing things, I'm doing the hard sell. You know me. Please hit that like button, subscribe, bell next to it. I've done my research. When I say it, I get more. When I don't, it just slides on by, and we can't be having that. Speaking of things sliding on by, in slides the link to my Patreon if you feel like you need the extra learning materials, tabs, Guitar Pro, all those lovely things. Might help you kind of make sense of things that might become confusing, you know, if you're being force-fed a video. But remember, you can pause it, take it slower, go back. You're in control. That's the beauty of YouTube videos. Now, I'm going to go because it's 8:30 and I need to get to the gym before they close at 9:30. Do you think I'm going to make it? I don't think I am. Oh well. I'll let you know in the next video whether or not I made it. Alright guys, you've been amazing. You know what's coming. I'll speak to you soon.